live stream the meeting.
Oh, it
There we
says
go.
it's live.
Oh,
Is
hey.
it? Does it? Because
It
I still see a
does.
little load bar.
This meeting is being live streamed, so anything you say
Oh,
can and will
Oh
be
my
used against
word.
you in the
Well,
future.
interesting. It does say Greg Davis King's personal meeting room on on
Oh, I
YouTube.
should
So,
have. I
but
should
it,
have
it's
renamed it.
that's
wait, you're broadcasting Greg Davis King's personal meeting room? Terry.
Yes, I have the
it's the most
keys to the
impersonal
kingdom.
meeting
I
room,
was
and
gonna
Greg
say,
Davis King is not here.
I was gonna say the
If
irony
anybody
in
was
that is
if anybody was
I'm
wondering what
I'm
happened in
fixing it,
Greg
I
Frequent
think.
Miler's personal meeting room, well, now you know.
I think I'm fixing it. I don't know. But
we've taken it over. It's a takeover.
Oh,
So
um
I
Ask Me Anything Live. There you go. It's all good.
can
so
one
we
of you
should
guys read out the question I put in the chat while I sort
I,
out some back end
sure,
shenanigans?
but before we do, we should address the elephant that's not in the room.
Okay.
Because we are in Greg's meeting room, but we are Gregless today. So this frequent miler ask us anything has four of the party of five. Greg is on vacation this week, so you're going to hear and Stephen, Carrie, and I. So if you're listening in podcast form, that's why you don't hear Greg. He's not just refusing to answer; he's actually not here. So anyway, that out of the way. So the question that we have to start us out here is from a beginner question that asked, "How do I know how much my points and miles are worth? And all worth the same?" This is a really common question I get from people all the time. Like, how do I know how much is good? How much are they? My, Capital One points worth the same amount as my AmEx points. So, Tim, Steven, any ideas?
Thanks
Stephen?
for starting that off.
Okay. So yeah, they can vary depending on what kind of points you're looking at, and particularly that's where you'll get a larger variation for the most part than the value of um, airline miles. So things like IHG and Hilton, they're generally worth about half a cent each, maybe a little bit more depending on how you're actually redeeming them. Whereas with Hyatt, you're looking at trying to get about 1.5 to 2 cents per point of value. We have a resource on the website that we updated recently called Reasonable that give you a much better idea as to the kind of value you can try and get when redeeming your points and miles. So that can give you a much better idea because if you're looking at earning, say, 3 IHG points versus 2 Hyatt points or something like that, it might initially seem like earning 3 IHG points would make more sense because that's more points. So surely that's a better thing. But 2 Hyatt points are worth far more than 3 IHG points. So each of these currencies are worth can help you make better choices.
Thank you. And Tim, am I remembering this correctly that the project of kind of investigating our RV updates led you to something surprising about Sonesta? Did I hear that podcast correctly yesterday?
I don't know if you heard the podcast correctly, but I can tell you, based on very good authority, that you shouldn't take a siesta on Sonesta.
That's what I've heard somewhere.
Exactly.
I've heard that a
Somebody
very
smart said that.
wise men arrived at the conclusion. Wise people.
Wise
Yeah, so
people.
we've been in the process of revamping the reasonable redemption values, which the short explanation of how we do that is we go through for hotels is we actually have kind of a basket of American cities that are meant to represent various sections of the country as well as some vacation destinations. And we pick a weekend, a weekday, and a holiday weekend. And so we're taking 6 total days, and we're averaging properties prices on those 6 days, and then hopefully coming together with something that has kind of a scientific-ish or a more objective-ish value for these things. And we hadn't ever done Sonesta before. A while back, Greg, the frequent miler, was in the Western United States, and there was a breeze blowing, and he wet his finger and he put it up into the wind, and he said, "I think Sonesta points are worth 0.75." It was actually a bit more than that. It was sort of like, it was just a rough and tumble version of that. But so we decided to dig deep into it this time. And we found out that Sonesta points are actually, based on what we found, are worth an average of a little over a penny each, which is actually which makes them one of the more valuable hotel currencies, which is pretty cool. As well as finding out some other fun things that you can listen to the coffee break about that. Greg and Nick dug into the program a little bit. And there is some fun stuff out there with Sonesta.
Well,
And you
Tim's,
also have a post, right?
yes, Tim's being
Yes.
modest. We dug into it, and by dug into it, he means we regurgitated what Tim wrote in his post on Coffee Break. So if you like to listen to podcasts, you can listen to us talk about what Tim wrote about. If you'd rather read, then you should definitely check out his complete guide to Sonesta, because it was an excellent guide, and it's a really interesting program. I shouldn't say really.
Yeah.
It's an interesting program.
More interesting than you
interesting.
expected.
Quite interesting. Yes, there you go. It's a surprisingly interesting program. That's a better way to put it.
I do have some viewer questions we can jump into now. So thanks everybody for that. This person says, and this one's going to be so we started with Stephen. I'm going to go to Nick, who's down there for me. I don't know where he is for everybody else.
I'm over here to this side.
This person said, I switched an upcoming trip to take a better flight the next day, which means I have to change Hilton and Hertz reservations. Both of them will reprice to higher costs than before. Is there any way to avoid this?
Go at a different time. No, I mean,
Sounds like
is
a
there a way
no.
to, is there a way to keep the price from, because it sounds like you had to change trips, so different days or whatever it may be. So yeah, no, the prices are going to be different. I don't think that I can give you a way to change that. But when it comes to the car, if you're not using Auto Slash, I would be checking out Auto Slash, and wherever you've booked it already, I would go to Auto Slash and track the rental price and pop in whatever it is you're paying and the details, because Auto Slash will continue to look for better prices, and frequently, in my experience, they do find a better price at some point. So I would certainly be doing that with your with your car reservation. With your hotel reservation, I think Auto Slash also, there's Hotel Slash, right? So I have not used that as much, so I don't know how reliable that is in terms of finding a better deal, but maybe you can check out Hotel Slash also. And yeah, I think those are the things that come to my mind. Does somebody else have a better idea?
Like
Going
No.
once, going
with
twice.
Hilton, well, I mean, with Hilton, it might be worth calling the hotel, just because if you're trying to rebook it, it's going to reprice automatically at. I guess it also depends on if you're booking an award stay or paid stay, but yeah, if you call the hotel and just say, is it possible to like shift my dates along one, or if you're like shortening the length of your stay, is it possible just to drop that first night, and then see if they're willing to do that. And just because it might be possible on their end to change the reservation so you still keep the same rate, but it just gets adjusted like you're looking for.
Great
Hey,
tip.
that's a good tip. All right. Tim, what's your prediction for the next points devaluation? We love making predictions.
For the next points devaluation. That's good. I mean, the popular one is American. People have been predicting that American points are going to drop in value for, about the last year and a half or so. I think there's a lot of wisdom to that, so I could see that. I would have said the Virgin. There used to be, until very recently, there was a Virgin sweet spot for using Virgin Atlantic points, where you could get Delta for Delta One transatlantic for 50,000 points.
Mm-hmm.
And that was terrific, even though it really rarely existed, but in terms of availability. But they just killed that yesterday or 2 days ago. I think Stephen wrote about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would probably now have to go with American, I'm thinking, unless there's something. Does anybody else have an obvious candidate they're thinking of?
I think.
I mean, I would imagine that Marriott's just going to gradually adjust down rather than a big devaluation. They already seem to have done that over recent months, where values have gone down. And Hyatt, in what, 8 months or so, they normally announce their category adjustments in March. And I wouldn't be surprised, just with the way things have been going, if we see a big revalue.
Every time I tilt my head, it means
categories.
that Stephen blinked out.
Oh, sorry.
Stephen is so scared of the upcoming Hyatt devaluation that he's
Right.
Yes.
Right. He wouldn't even say it. He wouldn't speak about
couldn't
it.
even get it out of his
But
mouth. It was so bad.
His
but it may
internet.
be coming. Yeah, I think regarding American, I think the specific piece to mention there is I think what we expect and probably what Tim was mostly
Partners.
referring to is the partner award chart. You know, because obviously they can charge whatever they want in their own flights since they get rid of the award chart there. So I think what everybody's worried about is the American Airlines partner award chart because as other programs have devalued, that award chart has looked better and better over time. So I think that's where we're most concerned, and that seems the most likely candidate. I agree with Tim.
All right. I have a question for everyone now. We'll start with Stephen and quick thoughts from everyone on the new Turkish card. Stephen, some quick thoughts?
Not particularly exciting. Probably only makes sense if you are finding it hard to get any kind of City or Capital One or Bill cards, just because those all transfer to Turkish, and so you'd likely get better value applying for one of those cards and transferring to Turkish rather than getting the Turkish card.
Nick, your thoughts?
I would say if you're having a hard time getting City or Capital One or Bilt points, your problems are much bigger than Turkish miles. So, yeah, I mean, that's already more thought than I think the card deserves. It's just there's nothing interesting about the card or the earnings or the welcome bonus. Even it's just not. It's a different issuer. I guess that's the most interesting thing. Impact or something. I don't even know. Do they issue anything else? Or not Impact? It was something else. It's something beginning with an I. First I've seen from whatever that issuer is. Anything to add, Tim?
Imprint.
Oh, Imprint. Imprint. There you go.
Which also does business cards. Oh no, there's a business card, there's an online business card company that's like for Imprint or for something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about?
For Imprint, for certain.
I would say yes, exactly.
The marketing works.
Except there was some uncertainty about that there just a second ago. So.
It was more because I was trying to decide whether to say it in the tone of their jingle.
To sing it or say it.
Well, no. What's the tone of their jingle? I'm curious now. What is that, Stephen?
I'm sorry, I'm cutting out right now.
Yeah.
I see. That's convenient.
So I think we've already thought too much about the Turkish card. That's
all right.
Yeah.
Nothing more to add. Then I have a question for Nick. I am product changing from my Marriott Boundless to Ritz Carlton card. I received my FNA free night
award, I guess.
Free night award on August 3rd each year. When is the best time to product change? Hoping to get both certs.
I mean, I have just 2 personal data points on this, but both of my personal data points, I product changed 7 calendar days before the day that I've gotten my certificate. So whatever 7 calendar days before August 3rd is, don't make me do the math on that. That's what, July 27th, I think. If I did it right, I'm not sure. So, or maybe, yeah, I think so. Anyway, so 7 calendar days before that annual free night award gets issued, that's when I've been able to product change. Now, the one thing I missed when I was listening to the question was whether it was a new card or because if it's a card that's less than a year old, I don't know if you're going to be able to do that. But if it's a card that's more than a year old, 7 days before, I've gotten both free night certificates of 2 for 2 on that on the upgrades. So that's what I would recommend going with. Speaking of product changing, though, I'm going to sneak in one other thing, and that's that somebody reported in Frequent Miler Insiders the other day that the Capital One Saver One card was available for a product change for them, which is something that has not been available for most people for a very long time. So this has nothing to do with the Ritz card, but I'll mention that I was able to product change a card to the Saver One card, and I was super excited about that.
Which one did you product change?
I product changed an old card that I had that was a venture card. Yeah, it was a venture card. But yeah, it was a venture card that I was keeping around for no good reason because it has a $95 annual fee and my wife has the VentureX. So it was really no good reason to have it. I've just been hoping to be able to product change it one of these days. And bam, it finally came up this week. So if you have an older Capital One card, you've been looking to product change to a Saver One, it's worth checking again to see if you have the ability to do that. Yeah.
Quick explain why that's exciting. Like the Saver
One.
One.
Yeah. So the Saver One card has no annual fee, but it earns 3% back on grocery, dining, and entertainment. And the nice thing about Capital One is that if you have a card that earns miles, you can convert the cash back to miles at 1 cent equals 1 mile. So essentially, for me, it's like a 3 miles per dollar card, grocery, dining, and entertainment uncapped. So, I've been using the Amex Gold card for grocery and dining for a long time for Forex, but that card has a $250 annual fee. This card has no annual fee, and it only earns one fewer point. And Capital One has pretty good transfer partners, almost as good, I would say, as Amex. So I think I'm probably going to lean towards getting rid of the Amex Gold card because 3x dining and grocery with no annual fee is awesome. Now, why didn't I just apply for that card outright if I was so interested in it? The welcome bonus is usually really weak, so it's not usually worth going after for the welcome bonus, or at least doesn't feel that way. And Capital One is really hard on approvals for people that have a lot of credit cards already. So I have not had success in my last several attempts with Capital One. So I'm not confident that I would get it. It would add towards 524. I'm just happy to get the 3x dining and grocery, good transferable points with no annual fee.
Nice.
Speaking of VentureX, somewhat, Tim, if I
Yes,
rent
ma'am.
a car with VentureX annual credit at C1 portal, do I get the VentureX primary rental insurance on this rental?
You do.
All right. Nice and easy. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Stephen,
Mhm.
when is a good time to upgrade Hilton Surpass into Aspire in order to receive free night cert from Surpass and then from Aspire?
Well, you would need to make sure that you have spent the 15,000 on the Surpass card first. Ideally, you would do it in the first half of the year, because that's what did with both my Surpass card and my wife's Surpass card. Spent the 15,000 on each of them, and then upgraded to an Aspire in June, so that way we had an opportunity to use the twice resort credits on the Aspire cards. So that meant that we got $200 to be able to use on each of those cards before June 30th was up. And then we have another 200 after. So in an ideal world, that's kind of what you do, or looking at this year, potentially doing it towards the end of the year, now that we've just passed July 1st. But yeah, the biggest factor here is when you have met your 15,000 spend on the Surpass card, but actually be able to make use of the Aspire credits as well. Just because if you're not going to be able to do that, then and if you're not necessarily going to be able to use the free night certificate, then it doesn't seem worth upgrading early just to pay a higher annual fee for a longer amount of time for benefits that you're not going to be using for a little while.
All right. Thank
And
you.
let me add one more thing to that. There are some people who would be so ambitious as to try and get both quarter or both half of the years of the resort credit on the Aspire, as well as the anniversary free night, plus the 15K free night from the Surpass, plus the 30K free night from the Aspire. If you're one of those enterprising people, you ideally want to have an Aspire anniversary date that's in the second half of the year, and then you want to use that resort credit right away at the beginning of the year in January, downgrade to the Surpass, do your 15K spend, and then go back up to the Aspire afterwards. Thus far, I haven't heard of anybody having issues with Amex in terms of doing that, as long as the car is more than a year old. However, that doesn't mean that you won't continue to have that, or that you could do that over and over and over again and without having any issue from Amex. But I do see that some people are doing that successfully.
All right. Thank you. I think we're at Nick, but this is an everybody question. So we'll start with Nick and then go around the table. Hi, FM team. Which recent miles and points devaluation, Virgin Atlantic, Choice, etc., has been the most disappointing for you? Starting with Nick.
I don't know as though one of them, like the Virgin Atlantic Delta one, to me was almost like a nothing burger because it was almost impossible to find. And I say that as somebody who booked it a few times, but it was just so hard. You had to be as flexible as one of us as, with a job where you could take off at any moment because you could find the availability. It just wasn't useful for a lot of people anyway. So it's disappointing that it's not an option anymore, but it's not like devastating to me because it's hard. hard to be able to use it. So I don't think that one was such a big deal. Choice, you mentioned choice, and that stinks because it was like Virgin, unannounced. And so it just happened overnight, didn't give you any opportunity to book anything. Like I had some choice points that I probably would have locked up in a reservation or two if I had realized before, for instance, they increased the price on preferred hotels. And I haven't stayed at any preferred hotels yet, but I was sort of eyeing a couple of them. And I would have loved to have known a little bit in advance that they were going to do that before they did. So it's disappointing for me because I hate to see that. And Virgin did the same thing with Delta. I hate to see a program devalue an award without giving any advance warning. I mean, like, how much do they really stand to lose by giving a couple of months of warning to tell people, hey, listen, we're going to be changing the prices. So smoke them if you got them, or, you're going to just have to pay more later. And at least it gives you the option. How many people are really going to burn off tons and tons of points? I think that's really poor form when a loyalty program does that, because then it gives me less confidence in the future. Like, is Choice going to do that again? And when? I have no idea. At least I know that, but that's not really comforting to me. So I guess I'm going to say Choice because they did something like what Virgin Atlantic likes to do, a no notice devaluation.
And that's actually, it seems like it's getting more and more common for things to be unannounced. And I think as more and more programs see that more and more programs are doing it, and there's really no repercussion outside of people being mildly irritated for a time, that it's more of the rule. I would say that for mine, and it hasn't really been talked about as a devaluation, but for me and my travel patterns, it's a massive one. I would say Hyatt losing SLH and then adding Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but then completely tanking their points value at Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I do a lot. So SLH was small luxury hotels. For those who aren't aware, it's like a marketing consortium for independent boutique properties that Hyatt used to partner with, and you got elite-like benefits. They fit into Hyatt's award chart, so they all had set award levels, just like within peak and off peak, but effectively set award levels, just like Hyatt award chart. Terrific array of properties, especially in Europe, where Hyatt is really weak in terms of footprint. And I had some terrific stay, and oftentimes a really good value. And it's unclear to me if that was on the rocks, which is why Hyatt bought Mr. and Mrs. Smith, or if Hyatt bought Mr. and Mrs. Smith and then it was on the rocks. But Hyatt bought Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which is another independent marketing consortium for independent properties. It's very similar to small luxury hotels or SLH. And we all thought, oh, this is going to be great. They own it, so the value is going to be terrific. But the value overall stinks. You rarely get much more than 1 cent a point at these properties. And there's a lot of great properties around that actually be really cool to take advantage of. But the value is just terrible most of the time. Occasionally you can get up to like 1.5 cents maybe, which is still below what you can get with Hyatt's normal award chart. So in terms of my travel patterns, as a guy who earns and burns a lot of Hyatt points, it really sucks. And to me, what it does is it actually severely limits Hyatt's international footprint in a usable way. So that has been thus far this year been my least favorite quote unquote devaluation, even though it really wasn't officially a devaluation.
Stephen, how about you?
Mine's also kind of an unofficial devaluation. It's more just anecdotal at the moment, and so I don't know how widespread this is, but I'm going to go for IHG. Just because of over the last couple of years, we've gotten tremendous value from it, and a lot of the time I'm finding that the points values have been just if you can buy the points at 0.5 cent per point. But recently that hasn't been the case. And so previously it always made sense to book with points, especially if you can do the 4th night free or get 10% back with the IHG Select card or both. Now we can still get like decent enough value by doing the 4th night free and 10% back, but it's not the no-brainer that it had been. And I've been noticing that more and more with upcoming stays I've been looking to book. So I'm hoping they have this kind of stealth devaluation that is really hard to find out. And judging by people's smirks on their faces, I'm guessing that I've been cutting in and out. So I'll just
a little bit.
IHG anecdotally.
Yes, I think
Stephen is
the main
up in
idea
Alaska
there.
right now, so we'll blame the distance.
Yes.
I'm actually
Yeah.
laughing. I think it's fun to watch Carrie watching Steve while Steven's talking.
Can't-
So if
I
you're not
can't
watching on
not-
YouTube, you should be. Just to see the head going back and
This is-
forth.
Can't not react.
Like personal meeting room.
Wyndham, by the way, is honorable mention in the
Oh,
Vacasa
yeah.
partnership
Yeah,
because I
That's a
was really
good one.
disappointed about that. But they did tell us in advance, at least on that one, unlike Choice. So I can only be but so upset that I didn't make an opportunity to use more Wyndham points at the old value. But the flip side of that is that the new system isn't terrible though either. So you're still getting pretty good value for Wyndham points. It's disappointing that it's not what it was, but not terrible. So it's just an honorable mention.
If you're gonna screw Nick over, you better warn him about it.
That's right.
I feel
Let me
so much
know.
better
Let me
about
know.
it.
I gotta get prepared.
Just give him advance warning. All right, Tim, this question's
Yes,
for you. Are there any hotel programs that combine personal and credit card nights together to get you elite status? I don't really even know what that means, so I'm hoping you do.
Yeah, I'm not. So there's several credit cards, the Hyatt credit card, the personal Hyatt credit card, there's several Marriott cards that give an automatic, every year as a benefit of holding the card, you get a certain amount, a base amount of elite nights that count towards elite status. I'm not aware of any program that doesn't allow you to combine those two, unless I'm not thinking of something right off the bat. No,
I'm
like
just
they all-
wondering if they're I'm just wondering if they're thinking in terms of, say, like status, but it doesn't give it in the form of elite nights. So if you have platinum, you can't earn the number between platinum and diamond in order to be able to get I'm
Oh.
guessing that might be what it is, but I'm
Oh,
not.
no, that would be good. Yeah. Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, and in that case, I'm not aware. Well, yeah, I mean, no, not in the way that if that's the question, in the way that you're talking about, there is a degree. So if you have the Marriott, no, and that's really, I was going to say that the thing I'm thinking of is if you have the Marriott Envoy Brilliant card, as well as a Marriott business card, you would get 40 elite nights per year and you'd have platinum status, and you would only need to make the difference between 40 and 35. But that wouldn't be really what that question would be about. No, there's no card that I'm aware of anyway, where if it gives you an automatic elite status, you only have to make the difference up between that and the next level with your personal nights. You're effectively starting from zero or starting from whatever that starting amount of bonus elite nights is.
Before we move on from Tim, your very clever personalized Zoom title is getting cut off on YouTube, so you're going to have to read it for everyone.
What I
2024
I don't
frequent
see it on mine.
miler.
What does it say? I can't tell.
It's a
Somebody else
2024
read that for
frequent
me?
miler annual challenge champion.
Oh, that's sweet. Greg must have done that before he left. What a guy. What a sweetheart.
For
Greg the
those who
frequent
don't
miler.
know,
Thank you very much.
Tim just won our annual challenge, I guess a few weeks ago now. That was so much fun. All right, Steven.
Thanks, Greg.
Next question for Steven. New Schwab rule of only 1 million points cash out at 1.1 and then 0.08 after. Are there good strategies for those who have high Rakuten spend turned into AmEx?
Well, if you're hitting 1 million points through Rakuten, then you're doing pretty well, especially if you're earning multiple millions through Rakuten. So for this year, I think that this change comes in from October 1st. So cash out as much as you can before October 1st if you're wanting to. Then you can cash out another million from December 31st. And then from January 1st, that's when like you're kind of properly limited on an ongoing basis then to 1 million. There's the AmEx business checking account that lets you cash out at 1 cent per point on up to 1 million points a year. There's also the Morgan Stanley card that lets you do something similar. I don't think Morgan Stanley has a limit, so that would probably be your best bet going forward if you're wanting to just cash out in that.
Well, that's all he said.
Well, I think that got the main point of it.
Oh no. Am I freezing also?
No.
Okay,
Don't think so.
good.
And so actually one other thing, like if you're into gift card reselling, sometimes Amex will reduce the redemption rates on certain gift cards, and so you can actually make a little bit of a profit on that above the possible option to look into. Just because I think like Coach gift cards were on sale for 20% off recently, and you can do better reselling those. So that's another way.
All right.
So he's
cool.
talking about if that broke up, he's talking about redeeming your Amex points for gift cards that you can resell for 1.1 cent per point or better, essentially. Because if you're getting enough of a discount on buying the gift cards from Amex, you may be able to sell them for an amount that effectively turns your points into cash at a rate of 1.1 or better. And then that would not be capped because you can redeem for as many gift cards as you want, theoretically. Now, an actual world, if you're really somebody who's redeeming millions and millions of points every year for gift cards, sure, there's probably some risk in that with Amex, but I don't know where that line is.
All right. Nick, you can hold the mic.
Thanks.
Most banks, yeah, perfect. Most banks have been declining my credit card applications, mostly citing too many hard pulls on their credit report. What should my next move be to maximize points earnings?
Well, okay. So, kind of a two-pronged answer here. The first prong is that usually I tell people that to just ignore whatever it is that the reason says that you were declined. And the reason for that is because, if it were so simple as boiling down to one reason why your application was declined, generally speaking, then, Equifax and Experian and TransUnion would have nothing to sell. I mean, they make a lot of money selling their algorithm to banks for approvals and obviously not approvals, declines. I don't know what's the noun form there? I'm not sure. But at any rate, if it were so simple to boil down into one thing, then they wouldn't have a product to sell. So it's much more complicated than whatever one or two reasons you see on your letter. And oftentimes we find that those reasons can be nonsensical. So we had someone at some point report that they got declined for a card for too many new accounts and they hadn't opened a single account in the past 24 months. So I don't put a lot of stock in whatever the letter says in general. However, in this case, that's why I have to have a second prong. It says most banks have been declining your card applications, citing too many hard pulls. So it seems to me like there is something that most banks don't like. Now, is it really the hard pulls? I don't know. Maybe you've got so many that lots of banks think it's a problem. I would be more inclined to think that there's something else that banks are seeing that they don't like also, whether that's your utilization percentage or other things on your credit report. I'm not sure which, but I would bet that there's more things. So probably I would chill out for a little bit. I would focus on getting utilization down to near zero. And that's something worth knowing about. So most banks report your utilization, the percentage of your credit limit that you're using when the statement cuts. So the strategy is to pay it off in full before the statement cuts. Now, that strategy varies a little from bank to bank, so you're going to have to do a little bit of research because like US Bank reports your balance on the 31st of the month, not your statement balance. Right. And some banks will report your balance in the middle of the month if you pay it down to zero. Like I think Chase usually does that. So there's some variance in how that all works, but I would be focusing probably on that. Now, a next level strategy could be if everybody's pulling the same report, like maybe they're all pulling Experian and you've got a million hard pulls on Experian. A strategy you could try is freezing that one report that's got a whole bunch of inquiries on it. And many banks, if one is frozen, will either automatically try pulling another, or you'll be able to call in and maybe request that they pull a different one. Now, whether or not they're going to do that, agree to do that, or they're going to insist on seeing the one they wanted to pull is going to also vary by bank. But that is a strategy you might pursue if you have one particular credit report that's got a lot of pulls on it. Then you could freeze that. So you just go to Experian.com and there's somewhere you'll see a button for freeze my credit report if that's it. And I say Experian. That's true at each of the major credit bureaus. So consider that. I think that's my final answer.
All right, very good. Anything else to add from anybody else?
I mean, I would just say that like Amex doesn't do, like if you already have Amex cards, they don't, you get a new card. And so if it is purely hard pulls that are the issue, focusing more on Amex might be worth it, especially business cards, because then those won't even show up on your credit report as well.
So the part that Stephen cut out on was the kind of the most important piece, and that's that Amex usually does not pull if you're an existing cardholder. They usually don't put a hard inquiry on your report. Now that's not guaranteed, but I don't know anybody who's had one who's an existing cardholder in years. So yeah, good chance that they won't pull. So if you're an existing Amex
Stephen and Nick-
cardholder, focus on those. Oh, am I freezing
Stephen
too?
and Nick, no, both of you
Okay.
combined make a complete Stephen.
Complete pepper. Two partial
You're the
peppers make a
Stephen
whole.
whisperer.
Yeah, he's the
The
translator.
Stephen whisperer.
All right. I think we're at Tim, maybe. How is Wells Fargo household? I think it's Wells Fargo household sharing. How does that work? Can I share between player 2 cashback to player 1 autograph points?
Yep.
Mhm.
So this is actually a really good question, and it brings up something that we've been thinking of. We need to get a Wells Fargo rewards guide out for just these sorts of questions. And I'm actually not certain about this one. So Wells Fargo recently introduced this. They're starting to call they made their points that they earn transferable on a couple of cards. To travel partners, so to hotel and airline partners. They renamed them Wells Fargo Rewards, and Wells Fargo Rewards, just like Capital One points, can be shared across, or Capital One miles, I should say, can be shared across cardholders. What I don't know, so there's also a quirk to this program, kind of like Capital One, like Nick was talking earlier, where cards that officially earn cash back, they are actually earning Wells Fargo reward points. And if you have one of the cards that allows you to transfer to partners, you can combine those rewards together and then transfer what you're earning on the cash back card to partners, just like Capital One cashback cards work. What I'm not sure about, and what this question is, yes, you can share Wells Fargo reward points, and officially things like the Active Cash and the Signify and the what's the new card, the Attune, they officially earn Wells Fargo rewards. So my assumption, which is just that, it's an assumption, would be that even if you don't have a transferable card in your personal portfolio, that you could still transfer those to player 1 because they're Wells Fargo rewards, and you would then be able to transfer them to travel partners. However, that's just an assumption. I haven't read anybody. I don't have any personal data points that I've seen where somebody has successfully done that. So I would say to you, give it a try with a small amount of points and let us know if it works, because then we can include that into the guide and let everybody else know that that's possible.
We have somebody, I forget if I pasted it in here, so actually I'm going to wait till I get to it. Okay. Thanks. Stephen.
Suspense.
Yes. How would you go about booking a business class award ticket from the US to Asia, the Eastern US to Asia? In this case, it's Vietnam. This person says, I'm on the East Coast, but happy to position to the West Coast. Do you have to position, or are there strategies from the East Coast?
You don't have to position, but it might be easier finding availability, positioning to somewhere like LAX or Seattle or something. There's been so many devaluations the last year. I'm keeping track, and especially to Asia, it seems like there's been a lot of changes with like Alaska and Cathay and ANA and Virgin and things like that. But I think ANA round trip would still probably be the best value in terms of the number of miles you need to redeem. You'd have to redeem round trip, but I think that I can't think what it would be from the East Coast, but I think it's about 100,000 round trip from the West Coast. Another option, depending on what kind of trip you want to put together, would be to do a one-way ticket booked with Aeroplan miles, like because Nick ended up there on 3 cards, 3 continents. He actually got all the way to Vietnam with what, 5 or 6 stops along the way. And so
Went
that
to
would
Philippines,
be
but yeah.
another,
Yep.
like if you want to put together like jam-packed kind of trip like that, that's another option. It's not the cheapest one, but you would be able to see a fair bit.
A fair bit
And then
more.
I think Turkish has like a good rate going to Vietnam as well. Anyone else got any others?
I would say your best strategy is to use something like Award Tool or Points. Yeah, one of the award search tools, or Seats.Arrow, all of which have different strengths and pluses and minuses. And we have a post that compares the various award search tools. If you just Google frequent miler, which award search tool is best, those are probably going to be most helpful in terms of determining what's actually available during the time period when you are free to travel. But I'm sorry, Tim, I didn't mean to step on you. Do you have a?
No, I was
couple
going to
good
say the same
suggestions?
thing.
Okay.
I mean, the one thing that popped out that Stephen didn't mention in terms of programs is I believe American
Yeah.
still has one price from East Coast, West Coast, doesn't matter on all the
Yep.
partners.
60K
I
in
think it would be
business.
70,000.
Oh, 70. You're right. 70. You're right.
70,000 in business, regardless of where you're living from the United States. So in addition to the ones that Stephen mentioned, but I was actually going to say what you said, that like really for those sorts of things, it might be more based on what's available, you know, like to earn a bunch of American miles and pay 70,000 and there's another program that actually has the dates that you want for 85,000.
Right.
You probably, the extra 15,000 miles, you may not notice. So finding the availability, so these award tools are terrific right now. They're not the end all be all, but they're pretty close to it.
Yeah, good tip. All right. This is a Nick question. A while back on the podcast, a mailbag email asked about a resource deep dive on downgrading paths for cards. Any update on when that might be coming? Is that on our radar?
Thank you very much for the reminder, because I had forgotten all about that. But
the plan has been downgraded.
The plan got downgraded. Got downgraded to the no annual fee version, and so no, yeah, that's a very good suggestion, and one that somebody had come up with, and I thought was a great idea, and I just totally forgot about it. So thank you for the reminder.
Stephen reminded us of that, like 2 weeks ago, I think Stephen had added that on our list of things to do, was to add
maybe.
And I
think because I've been catching up on podcast episodes, so I'd probably listen to exactly the same one.
Yeah. That's right.
All right.
Soon is the update.
Grateful for the reminder. Like this video, please.
Yes.
We forgot to ask you to do that.
And if you're not grateful for the reminder, like it too.
Still like the video.
That's right. Just doing our housekeeping and reminding you, reminding you to like the video, and you're reminding us to write posts that are valuable. Right. So, okay, we will do that. All right. Tim, this person has the Southwest Companion Pass and 170,000 points to burn. And they're looking for recommendations on good Southwest destinations. Where should they go with their companion?
I'm gonna default this to Nick, because Nick is the only one of us that actually has and uses a Southwest companion path. Oh, do you have one, Stephen?
Yep, I got one just this year.
Well then, you guys, because I'm just going to start spitting out places that Southwest serves that are fun. So why don't you guys actually say what you think would be?
I'm going to say Stephen should answer, because Stephen has probably seen more of the United States than either of us, right, Tim? I mean, like, I don't know. I know you've traveled a lot, Tim, but Stephen's been on an 8-year 50-state road trip. So I feel like he's uniquely qualified to tell you where to go on Southwest.
Although that got downgraded to a 7-year 50-state road trip.
7 year, sorry. That was close.
Yeah, no, it was going to be 8, and then I just basically couldn't take an 8th year of moving it.
It's a long time.
And so it did literally get downgraded to a 7-year trip after being upgraded from a 5-year trip.
Yes.
Yeah, in terms of like my favorite places, New Mexico's been my favorite state so far. So I'm going to Albuquerque and then touring around from there, can highly recommend. Washington State's been one of my favorites. So Tim and everyone else who lives there has been keeping it quiet as to how amazing it is. So really enjoyed Spokane, really enjoyed Leavenworth, really enjoyed Seattle and Port Angeles. So I can highly recommend any of those. I guess Hawaii. St. Louis is a surprisingly cool city, and absolutely love the Arch way more than I would have anticipated. And there's a fantastic Category 2 Hyatt that's right next to the Arch. So if you have any Hyatt points, then that's another great spot. What about you, Nick?
I saw the question and I was like, well, like good destinations, like what do you like to do? Because like it's hard to like if you like the beach, I mean, you go somewhere in the Caribbean. But if you hate the beach, then maybe you should go to Denver or somewhere else. It's really hard to give you a recommendation. What I would do is just go to the Southwest route map and take a look because it really it's going to come down to what interests you the most. I enjoy getting to places that are kind of off the beaten path, even though most of the places I've been over the last few years have not been necessarily so off the beaten path. But and Southwest does fly to some of the smaller cities in the United States where I'd be interested in just seeing what's there. So you got a lot of points. I would just take a look at what it is that interests you. So it's hard for me to tell you what should interest you. And I don't have a better answer than Steven's.
Oh,
Does anyone?
And shout out to my sort of former hometown of Norfolk, Virginia, just because Southwest does fly there. And nearby, you've got Virginia Beach, you've got Portsmouth, which has like a lot of history there. You're near Jamestown and Williamsburg. If you want to drive up there, that's like probably less than a 30-minute drive from. And so that's another possible option for something that you wouldn't necessarily normally think of.
Does anyone remember offhand the international destinations that Southwest has?
I have a bunch. Mexico, Costa Rica,
Mexico,
Turks and Caicos, Aruba, Jamaica, I think Puerto Rico.
Do they fly to Turks and Caicos? Do they really? I didn't even realize that. We had to stop there on a cruise, and my goodness, one of the nicest beaches I've seen in the Caribbean.
That would be. I've always wanted to go to Turks and Caicos, so that would be my recommendation. But that's just because I've always wanted to go to Turks and Caicos, and they now fly there. So I think it might be seasonal. I'm not sure, but let me look. According to flightconnections.com, which is what I always use to look at route maps, they fly from Tampa and Baltimore.
Perfect. Good to know.
So
and
if
I
we're
think
wrong about that, email flightconnections.com because that's where I got the information.
In Mexico, I think they only go to Cancun, right? Or am I misremembering that?
No, they added some more destinations.
Yeah, I flew to Los Cabos years ago on
That's right.
Southwest.
Yeah.
And Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think there's a
cool.
few.
So tons of ideas.
Oh, and one other final honorable mention, fly to Rochester, New York, drive an hour southeast to the Finger Lakes region area. Beautiful lakes, beautiful hiking, Watkins Glen State Park, amazing, and loads of wineries. So yes.
Nice. Good tips. We need the Stephen Pepper Almanac one of these days.
Almanac.
All right. I think we're at Nick. Right. Yeah. Any tips for enjoying traveling with young kids? I like the phrasing of this question. Our kids are 3 years and 3 months, and we feel like all travel outside family visits is on hold for at least a few years. Any tips?
I mean, I don't know. We really enjoy traveling with our kids. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's different. It's not the same. Like we traveled much differently before we had kids than we do since we had kids, in the sense that it's a much slower pace. And so you have to accept that it's a much slower pace. We try not to plan more than one big thing a day. So, whether it's a museum or we're going to the beach or we're like, whatever it is that we want to do for the day, whatever the main goal is for the day, we try to just set one. And in the past, we'd go and dart to 18 different things in a day and it'd be no big deal. That it's not easy to do that with young kids. So you really do just have to pick the one thing each day. And I think that miles and points makes that way easier than it was before we traveled with miles and points. Because if I was using cash on everything, I would feel like, oh my goodness, I'm in Paris. I have to see everything because I don't know if I'll ever get back here again. But with miles and points, I don't feel that way. So I feel like as a family traveler with miles and points, it takes a lot of that pressure off. I say, well, if I don't see everything in Paris this time, I can come back another time someday. So, obviously time isn't unlimited, but I have the possibility anyway of coming back. It doesn't seem daunting. So, yeah, I mean, we really enjoy traveling with our kids. More space helps in the hotel. So using Hyatt points to book a suite, for instance, because you can book a suite when standard suites are available with points anyway. With Hyatt, that's nice because the extra space is really helpful with kids, if for nothing else, so they can run around the room and get a little bit of energy out. And we always try to build in like a playground. We'll look up a playground anywhere we go. And maybe that's not the most exciting destination of the day for us, but it often is for the kids. And they get to meet kids from whatever country it is we're in and play. And even though they don't necessarily understand each other, they get to enjoy the, universal language of laughter. And oftentimes, of course, the kids speak some English. And so, it's interesting seeing those interactions and then talking with our kids afterwards about, did you notice they counted down from 10 in English and that's not their first language. And so we get to have some of those conversations with them. So, and we lean into what they're interested in. I guess that's the last thing. I was really amazed. I think I made this comment on a podcast, maybe not ours recently, where I was reading something to my 3-year-old about dinosaurs and the word flooding was in it. I said, do you know what flooding means? And he said, oh, yeah, I remember we saw a video. My 3-year-old said this summer. We saw a video about flooding at the dinosaur museum. And I had to stop and think about it. And I remembered exactly the video he was talking about. I said, yeah, that was last year. A year ago, he was 2. And so that was last year. That was in Belgium in a city called Brussels. He's like, yeah. And we went to the Smurf Museum. And so he was, and sure enough, there is a museum because the Smurfs are from Belgium. And we went there one day off of the museum. If you go to the Natural Science Museum in Brussels, oh my goodness, it's got all sorts of dinosaur fossils and skeletons. It's an amazing, awesome museum. A hotel manager gave us the tip to take the kids there. And so anyway, we went to those 2 things a day apart when he was 2 years old, and he remembered it a year later. So, the kids do enjoy and remember those things. If so you lean into what they're interested in. My kids love dinosaurs right now, so yeah, sure, we'll go check out a dinosaur exhibit. So I guess those would be my tips for traveling with young kids, and just accept that it's going to be a little bit different, but it can still be a lot of fun. Cruises
Nice. And,
also. Cruises are great with kids.
And asking hotel managers, apparently, hotel staff.
It helps.
Tips.
It helps.
Yeah, I like that. And aside, I was going to ask you if there were any like recent wins, but it sounds like Brussels, that's a win.
Well, yeah, but cruising, really, all of the free cruising stuff, we had no interest in cruising until this whole free cruise train came up. And we've written, if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, just Google frequent miler, how to get free cruises by gaming casino status matches. And so we've done tons. We've done like, I think 7 in the last 18 or 19 months. We got 1 booked this summer and we've got 2 more booked already for next year. And it's not that we ever saw ourselves as cruisers, but with kids, it's awesome because you don't have to think about, okay, who's going to eat this or that? And where can we go that we can get food that everybody's going to eat? You got breakfast and dinner figured out. You just got to go find lunch somewhere, and you can find something cool for lunch when you're out in port for the day, and you can see 6 or 7 or 8 different places without having to pack up all the clothes and the diapers and the wipes and all the rest of that. It's all in one place, and it moves with you from place to place. So cruising really has been awesome with young kids. So that is, I guess my other tip beyond just get out there and do it. It's very doable. It doesn't have to be on hold, at all. I think my 6-year-old, by the time he was 2, he had already been to a couple dozen different countries and more than 100 flights. So it doesn't have to get put on hold. You can do it.
I think you should do a coffee break episode about that sometime.
I was gonna say, as long as you're liking this video, if you think Nick should spend a whole 40 minutes talking about this on a
Like
podcast,
it.
leave a comment to this post and say, Nick, more family traveling tips, please.
Yeah.
And if you don't want me to talk about it at all, just like this video.
That's right. And just don't bother commenting. We don't want to hear about that. All right. Okay, Tim.
Yes,
Or everyone, but we'll start with Tim. Has anyone ever taken a chance on the ANA wait list? I don't know what that is, so enlighten me.
No, and I never would.
Why wouldn't you?
The reason why is ANA is already a pain enough in the butt to transfer and book with, and their miles have a hard expiration date. So once you transfer, it's what, 36 months, I think, from transfer date?
I think so, yeah, 36 months.
36 months. And so if you were to, I mean, I don't like the wait list idea in general because I just want to have a flight. And then if I'm going to book something else, I want to book something else and cancel that flight. I don't want to like be waiting around and hoping that the flight becomes available. So that's my thing at all. But with ANA specifically, if that flight doesn't become available, like let's say you transfer 88,000 miles for or 88,000 points for 2 miles for an award, and that award doesn't come through, even if you book something else, now you have those parked in ANA, and they're going to expire in 36 months, regardless of whether or not you have a need for those miles through ANA. So yeah, I would never do it. Personally, if Stephen or Nick would, I'd love to hear why.
No, same. Cosign.
Never tried it.
No. All right. That's a resounding no. Okay, we have time for just a few more questions. Stephen, Flying Blue, can you reprice your flights if they go down in price due to promo awards? Can you add a free stopover on KLM operated flights as well?
KLM you can, but in terms of repricing your flights,
I can't not do
okay,
it.
so KLM reprice. I don't think you can reprice unless you were to cancel and rebook, but then you have whatever the associated fees are. So
Which
I'll let
isn't
anyone
terrible.
else
It's,
expand
what,
on that.
70
So
euro, I
can
think?
get stuff.
50 bucks per
50
person.
euro?
50 euro,
Yeah.
50 euro. So
Yeah.
$53 a person.
Yeah,
or
so it's
whatever
not
that
terrible.
would be.
If it's a big difference, it would be totally worth canceling and rebooking.
For those listening to the podcast version, every time Stephen freezes, I tilt my head and
Oh, it's
then we
hilarious.
have to come up with things to say.
Hilarious. I'll tell you what,
Um,
Stephen is certainly leaving Carrie on the edge of her seat every time.
So have you picked up that tick from Maxwell? Like when you talk
I
Oh.
swear, I think I have like the same personality as a dog. Like Maxwell and I share so many habits. I think I was just a dog in a former life. All right.
and Maxwell is Carrie's new dog, just in case
yes.
anyone who's listening doesn't know. So.
He is the sweetest little boy. And does
if you
anyone
follow Carrie on Instagram, or if you don't,
Please-
go follow
please
Carrie on
don't.
Instagram. You'll see a lot of
No.
adorable Maxwell cavorting about the West Virginia hills.
He is adorbs. But I don't want to get too far off topic. Was there anything else anyone had to add to the Flying Blue KLM question? All right. Then Nick, any thoughts on the new Attune card from Wells Fargo? There's some interesting categories such as bookstores, Amazon. Remember that used to be a bookstore? Sporting goods stores, gun stores, ammo, shooting ranges, barbers, nail salons, etc.
Yeah, I almost want to punt this to Steven just to watch Carrie's head go back and forth a couple more times. But,
Do you have a squeaky toy in there somewhere too? You'll see it a lot.
But no, yeah, I think this is like the sleeper card of 2024. I think that this is one that if you didn't read much about it and you only looked at you went to the card page and just looked at the bonus categories, you might be like, it doesn't look very interesting. How much do I spend in those? But if you dig into it a little bit, I think this is perhaps the most exciting new card of 2024, especially if you have another Wells Fargo card that has the ability to transfer to partners because you can move the cash back. Here, the rewards earned here to your autograph card and onward to partners. So, and like you said, there are a number of things that might be interesting. When I saw bookstores in the list for one of the categories, Amazon was the first thing that came to mind. They did give a list of example stores that would fit into their categories, and they didn't list Amazon, which didn't tell me that Amazon doesn't count, just that they weren't advertising it. But I don't know yet. So yeah, there are tons and tons and tons of things. And if you see my post about the Wells Fargo Attune card, you'll see I listed in that post a whole bunch of things that I think a lot of people spend a good deal of money on that are not normally bonus categories. And there were things like boat leases and marina fees. Like, we got
Weird.
a boat. My goodness, you could earn a bonus category on paying your marina
a boatload
fees.
of points.
Boatload of points. Well done, Tim. Well done. Oh, well played. So yeah, I think it's a great card, and you should check out the post that I wrote about it because it explains some of the reasons why. Anybody got more to add to that?
No, I think that's sufficient. All
Just
right.
wanted to see if this works with Carrie.
Is this a squeaky toy?
Yes.
Oh.
I wasn't seeing the head go.
It certainly caught my attention. All right, last question, and I'm gonna ask it to all of us. So we'll just quickly, anybody have a favorite backpack or piece of luggage that you would recommend? We'll start with Stephen.
We've just been using the same luggage for many years, and so we probably need to replace it at some point. I'm more of a kind of cheap and functional kind of person, so I don't have any Briggs and Riley or anything like that. So
whatever you can get your
tell
hands
you,
on.
when Steven says he's been using it for years, I have personally drug Steven's carry-on, and this thing is it's like trying to take a cat on a walk. Like whenever you pull it, it's like jumping to the side and going in weird
Like a
directions.
sack of potatoes.
And He's still using it
Yes, I am.
this very moment.
Good.
So he's not exaggerating when he's.
The wheels are still attached, and so I have a hard time giving up.
It's gonna rock it till the wheels
Hardcore.
fall off, folks.
Yeah.
You heard it
That's-
straight from Steven.
That's a bumper sticker. All right, Tim, how about you?
I have two pieces of advice, and one is like Steven. I'm not quite as savings oriented as the Sultan of savings, but that being Mr. Pepper. But I don't like to spend a lot of money on luggage. I just like it to be functional, get the functionality that I need for as cheap as possible. So I would say two things. I don't like checking in luggage. So every piece of luggage that I own is carry-onable. I have two pieces of carry-on luggage. One is good for all US airlines. One is good for all international airlines. And oftentimes you'll need a smaller carry-on to be able to carry on in European and in some Asian airlines. So like, for instance, on the recent challenge, I actually took the smaller one, and that saved me from having to check in on, I think, 3 different flights. So I would say think about that in terms of where your destination is and if it would be better to have carry-on stuff. And the other thing is look at your bag at the end of your trip. And if you haven't used anything that's in your bag, maybe think that you could pack a little lighter. I oftentimes, for years, I would pack all this stuff that I didn't need, and I was taking a bigger bag than I needed. And then I'd get back, and like half of the clothes that I had in there, I never even used on the entire trip. So just be aware of what you're doing, because I tend to, like I said at the get-go, the smallest thing possible is kind of what I tend to go for.
All right, Nick.
I feel personally attacked by Tim's point about bringing too much in your bag.
I wondered.
Nick needs a carry-on just for his electronics.
I mean, you don't know what you're going to need, Tim. Some point you needed a charger or something, I think, Tim. Anyway, my point, not my point, there's not a point there. My thought here is that I agree with what Tim and Steven has said in terms of value. I have owned some more expensive pieces of luggage and things. I really do like my Tumi backpack very much, or I liked the one that I used to have and the replacement that I got for it. I like well enough anyway. But in terms of like my carry-on bags and our checked bags, I really like Muji, which is it's a Japanese brand that's not particularly well known or popular. It's not a luggage only brand. It's in fact, it's generally speaking like I'm going to say lower price, more value type product store that has been spreading some in the United States. So you'll see some more of them now than you did years ago. We just stumbled on them in Japan because we needed a new bag when a wheel broke, and have really kind of fallen in love with them because the wheels lock. And so that's super nice, especially when we're traveling with kids and we got a bunch of bags and strollers and everything else. And we get on a train in an airport, being able to lock the wheels so the bag won't roll away is just really nice. I don't know why everybody doesn't offer that on their bags. So I love that. And I love the fact that I can zip one side of the carry-on if we want to close things up in there. Whereas like I have a Rimowa bag that I got from a promotional thing, and you can't do that. You can't like separate stuff, and that drives me kind of crazy in that bag. So I'm a big fan of Muji because it's pretty value priced. The carry-ons are like 150, 180 bucks, something like that, which compared to like a Tumi or a Briggs and Riley or whatever anyway is significantly more value priced. So I like that. And there was another thought I had when Tim was talking, and now I totally forgot it. So that's all you get is Muji, and I do like my Tumi backpack.
And how about you, Carrie? What kind of
I am recently trying to one up the carry-on only club and go personal item only.
Oh.
So these discount airliners, they say you can't even have a carry-on. It has to be like, it has to fit under the seat.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to pack
Carrie has to be able
bags. Yes, my Harry's carry-on is to fit under the seat. And I have never, like Steven, I'll one up Steven also. I have never bought any of the bags that I have. I've gotten them inherited from people who are done with them, etc., something like that. So I'm waiting to hopefully inherit one day my sister's Cotopaxi bag, which just looks awesome, but she just bought it, so it'll be a long time before I inherit that. So but it does look, it's really nice. It has the like zip around so you can fold it outward. So it just packs really smart, but it does fit under the, it's the Cotopaxi Del Dia, I think, is the specific one that she had that I have bag envy for. So anyway, that's it. In the meantime, it's whatever school backpack I inherited from her last time. Yeah.
I'm impressed at how well you guys can pack in such little stuff. I do overpack some, and my family always checks luggage. So
Well, Annie's more
carry-on-only
like
thing
you.
is
So
never-
her Cotopaxi is one of like 7 bags that she brings. So
Thank you, Annie. You're making me feel better.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
and she's always very smug when we have to borrow things from her. She's like, you needed this after all, huh?
See, I know what that feels like.
Yeah, I have borrowed some things from you traveling with you, Nick. So I think you did save my butt on a few things. All right, that brings us to the end of our hour. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and for your questions. Like this if you haven't already, and join us next time. Oh, I better figure out how to like end the live.
How to make us
This may be a
unlive.
2-hour Ask Us Anything.